It happens to be that in the world of course to find, that the laws are not uniform and they don't apply to everyone in the same way. As politically incorrect as that may be, that is the case. And there are actually a different set of laws for young people, people in their formative years, than there are for people whose formative years are behind them. A different set of laws. Now, AARP would have a big problem with this. And the idea of democracy would have a big problem about this. But if it were indeed the case, it would be important that we knew that. Because if these constraints or allowances, however you look at it, are in fact in force, and you're not aware of it, you'll be walking uphill and not knowing it. You'll be winded and not knowing it. You'll be climbing at 15,000, 16,000 feet and think you're climbing at sea level and wondering why you're out of breath because you don't know the amount of oxygen you're being deprived from being at that altitude because you're unaware. So how vitally important would it be if you actually understood the set of laws that applies for the phase in life that starts at birth and continues in this going out process of exploration, this going out process for the discovery of what is here and what the five senses can absorb, what things look like, what things sound like, what things taste like, what things sense like, what things smell like. Discovering, exploring. And the necessity for that portion of life to be vigorous, not careful, not measured, not meditative, not contemplative, bold, risk-taking. Playing to the curiosity of the senses, allowing them to look around, not to be careful of what can go wrong. The laws that operate that first phase of life, if not understood and somehow avoided because of some book that you read when you were 10 or 12 or 14 or 16, that there is a whole better way of being. There's another world. There's the world of consciousness. The last thing in the world that you needed to hear. And to understand that teach your children well means to keep them away from those ideas. Those spiritual ideas are poison to that going out person. And if that school over there is in any way based on those ideas, that school is poison to those children. Because the most fortunate child is a child that never hears about what comes after, but is totally occupied, but what do I want now and how can I get it? And doing it with passion, and doing it with effort and concentration and determination. Trying to win in every case. Trying to get what it wants in every case. Now you hear in describing the laws that apply for the eventual realization of truth to that young person doesn't sound like the spiritual path of a person who has already done all that trying. You would never think that that person should do all those things. Selfishness is good. Selfishness is bad. Different laws, different phases. What a fascinating concept. What a disturbing concept. Especially if you have not taken it into account in your interactions with yourself and others. What a challenging concept. That this process that I define as going out and exploring the world, finding out what you can do, finding out what the limits of possibility are for this body and these mind and these feelings. What can be won? Finding that all out with vigor and encouraging each other and those that are in that phase to do that, so that they can go through the repetitions and the experiences and come to a place where they honestly see for themselves, not by reading in a book, but honestly see for themselves that I've had enough. The marriage and the divorce and another marriage and like that, and the business and the bankruptcy and another business, or the business and the success and another business, or I've been to this country and that country and then this country, and so that a person has had those opportunities as people in our culture have, and can honestly come to the point where that person can say to themselves, I think the next variety of what I'm going to do now is not really going to be different. It just happens to be I don't know what else to do. What an important point to come to. What an essential point to come to, honestly, for yourself. How else can you then go on to venture into what's available in the spiritual world if you haven't tapped what's available in the material world, in the ordinary world, in the world of the senses? You can't. And similarly, in the laws that operate in that world of coming home, going out, coming home, are equally as definitive. There are some things that will further your quest in coming home, according to those laws. There are some things that will deter or postpone or eliminate your possibility of going home, according to those laws of which you may be unaware. So not only does a person have to be sincere and determinate and have an intention and have heard of something better, but if that person expects to go from this course to find, to go from resting the weight of their life on the material things of this world, to resting the weight of their life on the inner reality, the actual energy that maintains our life and keeps it all going, the only thing that can maintain in actuality the weight of our life, if a person wants to make that transition, they have to cross paths with somebody that is aware of these laws. Not just somebody who has had that experience, but somebody who has had that experience, has paid attention to that experience, and is aware of those laws. Otherwise, you're jumping off a cliff with a hang glider and you don't even know what the air can do. Will it hold you up, or will it drop you down? You're flipping a coin. There is so much to understand about both these phases, which operate more like this than they do like that. Because the nature of our culture is we have been exposed to awesome amounts of information. And anytime we in our self-importance is exposed to information, we also comes along with it the imagination that if you assimilate that information, you'll know something you didn't before. So everybody is an expert on something, and it usually is just one book thick. And that doesn't exclude the people with credentials before and after their names, some of whom may be in this gathering. So because of this incredible availability for information, we know things that we're not ready to know yet. You know the old saying, a little information is a dangerous thing. Well, even a median amount of information and a lot of information is even a more dangerous thing. Because you can be in this phase, and right about here, you read that book. You read a book by someone who has had spiritual experiences and writes them down, not in metaphorical form, so maybe you can get it and maybe you can't, like a fairy tale, like The Last Unicorn. But you've read some information and you think, wow, that sounds great, I'll do that. But you're still here. So really the nature of our work is it's like this. It overlaps. Some people even like this, but let's call it like this. So that even though you have had life experiences, even though everyone here, there are no children here, everyone here has done things. There are things that you have avoided. You have unfinished business. Maybe it's not to get married again, maybe it's not to have another kid or another fling with the stock market. Maybe it's not that, but it's something. And if it's something, the laws that operate these phases will keep you from going here. You would like to be on the spiritual quest, but you are being inhibited by a law of which you are unaware that's going to keep you here, and it's going to until you take care of that unfinished business. So part of our work is to explore not only the question of how to come home, but is there some unfinished business here? Is there something that you have avoided in the world of the senses, in the world of winning, in the world of getting, in the world of seeing? Is there something that you've avoided that we can help facilitate so that you can actually be on this road home? So we have a big building down there. I've talked about this before. Maybe you've heard me talk about it. It's a big building down there that we have, and we set it up. Part of it is a big mat, like the ballet studio mat, like a karate mat, a mat, and the other half is set up like with a band, instruments of all kinds. And every once in a while we have a music happening. Not because the people here are expert musicians or have desire to be expert musicians. There are enough of us here that can hold it together. But as I've said before, anyone who's grown up in our culture has had a moment when they played the air guitar. A moment. Don't look like you don't, it's not you. Everyone has grown up watching those bands and for an instant imagining themselves on that stage. Everyone has sung in the shower. Everyone has a little bit of that. And if it's unfinished business, we can simulate that unfinished business. We can play Let's Pretend so you have that experience. Now we're not taking it out on the road, so don't get too much imagination. But we can do that. You can play the drum, or you can shake the tambourine, or you may even be able to play your 3 chords on the guitar after you learn them from somebody here. And it might sound frivolous, it might sound, but that's not the spiritual search. But what if you have unfinished business? There are people here that have traveled across the world with me to do social work in places in Syria, in Thailand, in places that you read about in the newspaper and you hear about. But you wonder in yourself, what would it really be like to help a person in a disaster? What would it be like to go down to Mississippi after Hurricane Katrina and really rebuild somebody's house? Not that it's a great thing to do, or not that we're saving the world in that way, but everybody has a little bit of this in them.